Panel, I'm just waiting for one more member to come back. Then we'll go ahead. There we go. Okay. Let's resume. We are resuming on item number 11, 100 Woodmount Avenue. And on this application we have before us the applicant's materials, 3 photographs, a staff report from Community Planning, and a petition with 4 signatures by owners and occupants on Milverton Boulevard and Woodmount. So, at this stage, we'll ask the applicant to join us by stating name, please.
Can you hear me?
We do.
Excellent. My name is William Harrison. I'm the agent for the owners of the property.
Very good, William. Okay, let's just check with the panel to see if they have a request to have a presentation or whether they would like to go right to questions for you. Panel, any questions? Requirement for a presentation? No. In that case, I'll look to the panel for a motion. Ms. Hayes, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I think the variances being requested before us are indeed minor, meet the 4 tests. There is general support for the application. If my colleagues have no further comment, I move a motion to approve the application subject to the conditions in the planning report about privacy screens.
Thank you. That is seconded by Mr. Byatt. Moved and seconded to approve subject to planning condition. Those in favor, show of hands, please. And that's unanimous vote to carry the motion. The application is approved. And we move on to item number 12. (1036) Greenwood Ave. We're dealing with the applicant's materials. We have an arborist report from Central Tree Care dating to July. There are photographs, 3 of them, of the property received in October. And there is a comment staff report from Urban Forestry. So we'll ask this agent to join us, please, by stating your name.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Colin Lightbourne. I am the designer and agent for the property at 1036 Greenwood Avenue.
Good afternoon to you. Colin, I'm just going to check with the panel. Panel, any request for presentation here? Any questions for the applicant? Hearing none. I will look to panel for a motion. Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Thank you. Having reviewed the material on file, the variances being requested, in my opinion, meet the 4 tests of the Act. They're not out of scale with other variances and built forms in the area. And if my colleagues have no further questions, or comments, I would make a motion to approve the application subject to forestry condition 1 and 2.
There's a motion. It is seconded by Ms. Valentini. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, show of hands. And that motion is carried by unanimous vote. The application is approved. Thank you. Bringing us to 153 MacDonell, item number 13. We have some recently received materials. There's correspondence in support from 150 MacDonell, just received yesterday, and in opposition we have correspondence from 156 MacDonell and 158, just received in the last 2 or 3 days. Also before us are the applicant's materials, presentation materials submitted by the agent in October, support correspondence from 139 and 150 McDonell, also from 37 Garden Avenue. And opposition correspondence from 149, 151, 147, 156, and 158 McDonell Avenue. So we'll bring on the agent, having the agent join us by stating your name, please.
Craig Race, architect on the project and applicant.
Good afternoon, Mr. Race. Mr. Race, you'll have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel, starting now. Please go ahead.
Thank you. If you could please pull up our supporting materials. The application before you is for a third floor and rear addition to a house just north of Queen Street at Lansdowne. Please go to the second page. Thank you. The massing of this proposal was crafted to fit with the neighborhood. Specifically, it's designed to be shorter, shallower, and narrower than its immediate neighbors. Additionally, the new third floor is stepped in from the floors below, a common gesture in the area to differentiate the upper levels and improve sun exposure. Next page, please. This illustrates fairly clearly that most of the houses in the immediate vicinity are actually taller than we're proposing, as well as many being deeper. Next page, please. I'll note on the site plan that the proposed depth is substantially less, and especially the neighbor to the south, which is on the left of this site plan, and that depth is not a variance. Neither is overall height. Next page, please. To indicate how prevalent third floors are in this neighborhood, we've highlighted all three-story homes on the street in blue, so you can see they're very common, both in existing homes like the bottom image, as well as new build homes and top-ups in the other two. Next page, please. I'll be happy to address any specific variances and questioning, but suffice it to say that we've maximized soft landscaping and parking on the site and tried to keep the position of the site relative to the neighbors as consistent with setbacks as possible. Next page, please. This project is proposed to be a fourplex composed of 2-bedroom units, except for the basement, which will be a 3-bedroom unit. And these are all intended for long-term rental. I'll also note the third floor step-ins again, which we crafted in concert with community planning, and these were intended to reduce main wall height, although that's still a variance because our third floor is a vertical wall, not a sloped wall. Next page, please. Letters of support and opposition arrived after this was submitted. You heard about many of those, but the neighbors, or excuse me, the homeowners did canvass the neighbors to keep them informed on the project. Next page, please. And I'll simply conclude by saying, we believe the form of this house is very reasonable for the neighborhood. Like I said, it's shorter than many houses. Height is not a variance. It's shallower than most houses. Depth is not a variance. And with crafting the third floor, we believe it's a responsible addition to the neighborhood. And because it's creating larger units, we're expecting very stable long-term renters to live here, hopefully with families who will meet the current demographic of the surroundings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's now hear from those that have registered to speak. And so we'll go now to the first registered speaker and ask that speaker to join us by stating your name.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair and committee. Thank you for having me today. My name is George Pinto, and I live across the street from 153 MACDONELL Avenue.
Very good. George, you have 5 minutes beginning now to address your concerns to the panel. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'll just start with one item that the agent presented. So I was not contacted by the owners, and I'm not aware of either of my neighbors being contacted by the owners. My objection to the project is around a lack of infrastructure, in particular a lack of parking infrastructure. Over the past 10 years, I would say the situation on MACDONELL and the surrounding streets has become, I would say, dire. I've been here for almost 30 years. It's reached the point that I rarely get a spot on my block, and I'm most often 300 to 400 meters from the block, not even from my house, from the block. And about 2 or 3 times a year, 2 or 3 times per month, I'm forced to park on Wabash Avenue, which is a semi-industrial park street at the north of MACDONELL, and it's about 975 meters, according to Google Maps, to my door. Whereas previously this would happen maybe 2 or 3 times a year. It's now happening monthly. I do understand that the plan includes 2 parking spots, but there's really no way to mandate that those spots are used. In fact, of the 5 houses across from me, excluding 153, 3 of those houses have parking garages on the back. They're on the same side as 153. And of those 3, none of them use their garage or parking spots. They have street parking permits. And adding 3 families with a potential of anywhere from 0 to 5 or 6 cars to a street that's already beyond its limit. In fact, about 12 years ago, the city sent out some information about looking at changing the side of the parking project that failed at the time, and 2 pieces of data stuck with me from that time, and that is that on MACDONELL there are 23 more permits issued than there are spots, and Zone 2, which includes MACDONELL Avenue and the surrounding streets, was at that time 90% full. So 90% of the available spots had been issued permits. And so that's really, we're adding to a situation that's already critical. And I think that this would fall under the same type of thing of adding to a neighborhood where you don't have enough sewage or electrical or water. This is, I think, to me, the similar situation. And I think that the committee would need to deny this request, at least until the city comes up with a plan to address the parking situation on MACDONELL. And I'm just going to close in saying I apologize for not having gotten a written submission in, but we had a Canada Post issue, and so I only got this a few days ago. And that's my submission, and thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you for your oral submission and the sense of impact that it gives us. Thank you. Any questions for this speaker panel? No. Let's move on to the next registered speaker. Please join us by stating your name.
Hi, I think that's me. Peter Lipscomb. I live at, I'm the owner of 159 McDonell.
You are with us, Peter. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes to address the panel.
Thanks very much. So I'm the owner of 159 McDonell, which is immediately to the north of the development, the development proposal. The property shares a party wall with the proposal. I did enter a late submission. It's labeled November 2nd letter of objection, which is probably a bit misnamed. It's could be more accurately named a qualified objection or qualified support. I'll go into that a bit more. I'm definitely in support of overall increasing the housing density. In the midst of an affordability crisis, we need to create more rentable housing in the neighborhood. So I'm supportive in principle. However, I got some reservations. There were many letters of objections. I read them all. They talked about visual intrusion and light, and these factors apply almost exclusively to my property. Being to the north, I'm going to be where the property's going to get the most shading and the most visual intrusion. So I guess that's my biggest reservation with the project. It creates a pretty bulky structure next to my house, which is going to go into the backyard and shade almost the entire backyard at different times of the year. And the garden obviously is it's a really well-loved feature of our house. It benefits from abundant light, and the new proposal will compete on that. But I think the project is still very viable and a laudable one if we just move it a little bit closer to McDonald Street. There's lots of room between so if we shifted the whole project to the to the east, to the west towards McDonald Street. That would actually improve the situation in the backyard quite significantly. Currently, the porch protrudes about 9 or 10 feet past the house. So there's an abundance, and there's about 14 feet between the proposed front of the house and the lot line. So there's lots of room to move the project forward. And there was still, even between the lot line and the sidewalk, there's still another 20 feet of frontage. And that the 153 currently has one of the most generous setbacks. You could see in the picture that the architect, the applicant was showing that there's lots of room. It has it's one of the ones set farther back from the street. The applicant is in agreement to this. If this is something that the committee would consider, the applicant was in support of this. I don't know what other variances it might trigger moving the property closer to the lot line, but we've already kind of relaxed a lot of the variances, and I hope that's another one we might be able to relax a little bit if it does trigger another variance. So I did submit. I don't know if there's enough time, but I did submit a late submission November 2nd. It's labeled November 2nd letter of objection. It was just a couple of shadow studies. I'm a bit of an amateur, so I didn't get it exactly right. Looks like, but if you do have those handy, it might be interesting to look at the November 2nd letter of objection, which is inaccurately named. But and so I guess the proposal is to move the project forward or to defer the application to allow the applicant to explore moving that project forward and improve the project for everybody.
Thank you very much. Any questions, panel?
I don't know. Were the staff able to pull up that November 2nd? I know it was a late submission, but would be handy to illustrate some of the things I'm talking about.
Well, if you have the letter there in your hand, why don't you simply bring them to our attention, rather than taking time to try to find the letter?
Yeah, it's a picture. Sorry, it's a picture that shows the lot line and how the shading might change in my backyard based on different kind of positions of the project. But,
okay,
yeah,
then.
It's just the project's quite bulky. It does shade a lot of my backyard and if we moved it towards the street, it would protect a lot of sunlight in that living space in the back, and also make more room for a future laneway house, which I believe the applicant's also thinking about considering.
Okay. All right. It just came in yesterday. So, is that it?
So I didn't get this exactly right looking at the pictures from the architect. But if you go to the kind of last page, it shows the lot lines. If you scroll up a page or two, so it just shows the current proposal on the left, and the proposal, and moving it forward on the right would still leave room between the lot line and leave a lot more room in the backyard that would intrude less on the privacy of my property and shade it a lot less. So that's I think that would improve the proposal quite significantly, and the applicant is tentatively in favor if that's something that the committee would consider.
Thank you, Peter. And let me just compliment city staff. This came in yesterday, and materials have been coming in now for weeks, and this came in yesterday, and there it is for us to look at. So most impressive city staff. Thank you very much, Peter. Any questions for this speaker? Panel? No. We'll move on to the next speaker. And ask that speaker to join us, please, by stating your name.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Fenella Petrie is not with us. I've made multiple attempts. I'll try to call her again in the meantime. The next speaker will be Marika Thomas.
Very good. Very good.
Thomas.
Okay, Marika, join us, please. State your name.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay, hi. So my name is Marika Toms. I'm the owner of 158 MACDONELL, which is across the street. My concerns just have to do with setting precedent on this type of development in the neighborhood. I work in another neighborhood in the Ossington area. I've seen this kind of development happen throughout the years. I'm not against, densification of any kind. I am only, kind of against changing things, the character of our neighborhood, and also just having the types of sort of residences that lead to shorter term residences in a neighborhood with long-term residences. And, you know, the parking one's a big one. The types of rentals that don't care for the neighborhood, such as like shoveling those sidewalks and, you know, taking care of infrastructure and things like that. So, you know, I've said a statement of opposition because I do feel as what they are asking is not minor variances, but major variances. And so we're not taking a unit that is being modernized to what the standard is that's beneficial for everyone in the larger picture. We're, you know, we're modernizing it, I think, to the biggest possible for that lot, which is, you know, in my opinion, excessive. And I just wanted to state that, you know, I think it's a bit, the variances that are being asked are a lot.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the speaker panel? No? Thank you very much. Let's move on to next speaker.
Hi, Robin Majuri-Banks, you are unmuted. You are able to speak.
Hi, thanks. I didn't have a list that shows the order of speakers. I live at 148 MACDONELL. It's across the street and one house south. I share the concerns that I've heard so far. Parking is a bigger issue than seems to have been addressed, and that's compounded a little bit by the fact within the same block on the opposite side, there's a commercial apartment building at the northwest corner of MACDONELL and Galley. And then just recently, the adjacent property at 146 MACDONELL, between the apartment building and me, has been converted to 3 individual units from a single family in the past. So those are issues in the parking. Also, that it comes to the issue of precedent as well about how much change and done by what routes, by what avenues, these sorts of changes. To me, when I look at those variances,
one error. I'm really sorry about this. It's really bad timing.
My apologies, that speaker was unmuted.
Okay, well, yeah, we had apparently we apparently had 2 speakers unmuted at the same time. Moderator?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, speaker, carry on, please.
I'll carry on. It's Robin Marchbanks again here. So these variances don't seem to me to be minor. For instance, the secondary suite's normally limited to 45% of interior floor space, going to 72.9. So my concerns, I recognize the need for an increase in density, particularly in downtown areas, but these seem like large steps done in a kind of ad hoc way by doing it through this kind of variance that has to be relatively large. So that's a concern. The issue of parking has been mentioned before. I share that concern. I think there's real problems with being able to park within a few blocks. And for people who are elderly but don't qualify for a disability permit or posting on the street, that's going to be increasingly a problem. Let me just, sorry, 1 second here. So again, the issue that within the block already, there are places that have been stepped up in density this way. And so I wonder also about the distribution of these density increases in addition to the sort of route by which it's being done. I also have a concern that if in the end it becomes a de facto standard that people will buy these houses, commercialize them into commercial apartment properties, I worry that in the long run that's going to change the way that people will price these houses, because there's a commercial opportunity there as opposed to the options offered for single families up until now, or perhaps 2 families. So I think that in the end that's a planning issue. I don't know how it's addressed. I'm not sophisticated about these committee meetings or even the planning process, but I wonder whether this is the right level to address either the multiple places that have been densified, and as well the fact that this opens a commercial opportunity that will change the pricing structure, I think, in the neighborhood. A couple of notes. As the previous speaker mentioned, I wasn't canvassed by the owner on this. I note in the diagram it shows my house is highlighted as a 3-story structure. It's not. I don't know how it came to be assessed as supposed to be a 3-story structure. There's a window in the attic, but it's a 2-story structure. And looking at the gray houses in that original diagram, I don't actually believe there are that many three-story houses on the block, but I haven't gone through and checked, so I'm not quite sure about that. So those are my points. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Any questions this speaker panel? No. Moderator, was that the final speaker? Yeah, okay. So we've now heard all the speakers that were registered. We'll go back now to the agent opportunity for response and rebuttal. Some of the issues that we've heard here from these four speakers. We heard first of all that by creating 3 new units where there's only one now, that a parking deficiency on the street, which is already grave, could become worse. We are hearing that in fact, there wasn't good consultation from a couple of these speakers. They didn't hear from the applicant. The person right next door is concerned about the impact of the structure on light into shading his backyard, visual intrusion, and came up with a proposal to simply move the structure closer to the front curb. And then there was generally agreement that the idea of densification is essential and important, but that perhaps this is too much densification to go to 4 units in this building is overbuilding. It's excessive development. Something less might do better. And concern, of course, about the opportunity or the potential for short-term rentals here as opposed to long-term rentals. So those, applicant, are the issues that we've heard from the neighbors expressed. Could you speak to those, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll begin with parking. So we're required to have 3 parking spaces, and we're providing 2. The nature of the 2-bedroom units that we're proposing and the 3-bedroom unit would tend towards residents with lower than average car ownership. So we feel that between the spaces we're providing and how close we are to the requirement, it is reasonable. That, in addition to the fact that there are 2 24-hour streetcar lines just north at College and just south of this site at Queen Street, we believe it's reasonable. In terms of siting the house, we did discuss potentially sliding the house forward. Unfortunately, that's not possible, we don't believe, mostly because it would trigger multiple new variances, specifically front yard setback, front yard landscaping, other things, but also because it would no longer align with the streetscape. And we're already substantially shallower than the immediate neighbor to the south, which wasn't included in the shadow study, by the way. But if we were to suddenly pull the house closer to the street, it would be out of character with the streetscape, and we believe that would be a negative effect on the neighborhood. And given the depth is not a variance, we don't believe that's a suitable solution. And with respect to the idea that less might be better on this site, a 4-plex is permitted in this neighborhood. And we think that the combination of the sensitive building massing, again, it's shorter than the neighbors, it's shallower than the neighbors. We don't have variances for either of those requirements. That combined with the size of units we were able to accommodate, specifically mostly 2-bedroom units and a 3-bedroom unit, are ideal for what our neighborhood infill requirements are in the city. I don't believe this house is too big. In fact, I think it's very reasonably sized for the neighborhood. And I think that the units are appropriate to attract long-term renters who are the ideal residents we want occupying neighborhoods just like this. Were there any other points you'd like me to speak to, Mr. Chair?
Well, I'm going to give the panel here a chance to question you directly. Panel members, any questions for the applicant? There is one from Ms. Hayes. Go ahead.
Just one question. 4-plexes are permitted. Are they common? And with respect to the interior floor area that you're requesting, can you just speak to that and whether or not it's an existing situation in the neighborhood?
Thank you, Member Hayes, and through you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, I don't know the prevalence of multi-unit houses in this neighborhood. It is a fairly central neighborhood to Toronto, so multi-unit houses are generally prevalent, and it is targeted by the official plan as a suitable housing typology for this area. Also, in terms of FSI, we didn't study that simply because the form of the house we believed was more important than the FSI stat. Like I mentioned, it's not taller than the neighbors or deeper, and we believe that that's critical to ensuring the streetscape and the neighborhood typology is maintained.
Thank you. Ms. Valentini, go ahead.
Just a question in terms of the parking. Mr. Race, have you looked into whether there are permits available on the street or in the neighborhood? I mean, I know it's by neighborhood or flow zone or whatever, but are there any parking permits available?
Yes, ma'am. Through the chair, yes. As I believe the deputy mentioned, the area is approximately 90% subscribed, so there are street parking permits available. We also don't believe this unit will place much, will have much use for that, given the on-site spaces and the nature of the residence.
Thank you. Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Sorry, just one thing with respect to parking. Is the owner living on site, and are they taking up, is there going to be any parking available to the tenants, or is the 2 spaces allocated for the primary suite?
Thank you. There's no direct allocation for the parking spaces in terms of which unit would have access to it. They are available for the tenants to use, though, for the residents, depending on who requests them, essentially.
Very good. At this stage, then, I think if questions have been looked after, then it's time to take the application into committee for discussion and moving toward a decision. So let's do that now. We'll now go into committee. And I'd ask one of the panel members to lead off, please, with some discussion. Mr. Byatt, go ahead. Then
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Followed by Ms. Valentini.
Sorry about, I've taken into account all the concerns, I think, that have been expressed, the neighbors, immediate neighbors, with regard to parking as well. It's also unfortunate that as one of the individuals indicated, that there's some folks who have parking behind their homes, aren't using them, which doesn't make the situation any easier. So having heard all of these concerns and certainly cognizant of them, I still do believe that this is a project that is well within reason for approval, and so I am inclined to supporting the application as is.
Thank you very much. Ms. Valentini?
Thank you. I don't have any issues with the built form. I'm satisfied with Mr. Race's presentation, and I thought it was very helpful to see the renderings and how that built form fits within the neighborhood. I think the step back of the 3rd floor from the front and back does help in terms of the massing. So the only issue would be with respect to the number of units, and we've heard that that 4 units are permitted in the neighborhood, and the issue, I guess, is really parking. While I understand that the parking sounds to be, stressful or stressed, we haven't heard exact capacity. I know it's at 90%, that's close to capacity, but there are parking permits available. There is a public transit available, and the variance is just for 1 space. So on that basis, and we've heard as well as Ms. Hayes asked, that the spaces aren't assigned to, an owner or somebody, so they're free for the tenant. So I think because the ask for the parking is one space that they're short, I can support this application on that basis.
Thank you. Ms. Hayes, Mr. Chang, would like to speak? No? Mr. Chen, go ahead.
I agree with
No?
a lot of my colleagues. I think it is very, I mean, it looks very appropriate. It's there, unfortunately, that, you know, it's a very dense area. I understand that it seems like the majority of the problem is the parking, and it's something we've been dealing with for the whole city. I think with intensification, and I think it's a very proper size for the area. So I have no objection to support.
Thank you. For my part, I'll be supporting the. I can support the application. This property would have good access, as was mentioned, to TDC Transit. A couple of opportunities to do that. So that gives me some relief with respect to the parking issue. I don't necessarily believe that the inhabitants would be people with cars, and also the fact that these are, you know, two-bedroom units is good, because that tends to lean toward families and longer term rentals. So yes, I could support the application. And I shall look to one of the members for a motion, please. Ms. Valentini?
Thank you. I'd like to bring a motion forward for approval of the application for the reasons that I had previously stated. In my view, I believe it meets the 4 tests, and I don't have any, there are no conditions.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Mr. Byatt. It is moved and seconded to approve the application. All those in favor, please show hands. And that's a unanimous vote to carry the motion, and the application is approved without condition. We move on to number 14 on today's agenda, which is 22 Glen Manor Drive. And on 22 Glen Manor, applicant's materials are before us. There are 13 photographs of the rear yard and trees received in August. And there is a staff report from Urban Forestry. So let's go to the agent and have the agent join us, please, by stating your name.
This is Matt Emerson, both applicant and owner.
Good afternoon to you. Very good. Okay, Mr. Emerson, I'm going to check with the panel. Panel, presentation requested or questions for Mr. Emerson? In the absence of questions, then I look to panel for a motion, please. Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Thank you. I think this is a relatively straightforward application. It's not changing really the structure, it's just adding another unit. I think the variances are not reflective of what already exists as built form and lot coverage in the area. And if my colleagues have no further comment, I would move to approve the application subject to forestry condition number 2.
Thank you. There is a second. It's Mr. Byatt. It is moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor? And the motion is carried. The application is so approved. And we move along to 124 Bedford Road. And on 124 Bedford, we have the applicant's submission, previous Committee of Adjustment decision, presentation materials from the agent from October 26. There's a TLAB order here that affected the property. There's a building length map submitted by the agent. We have support from 140 Bedford in writing, and we have opposition correspondence from 118 Bedford, apartment 4, 120 Bedford, apartment number 3, 120 Bedford, apartment number 4, 118 Bedford, and 122 Bedford. So, with that, let's go to, and there is some late correspondence here. I may have mentioned this already. Apartment 3, 120 Bedford, apartment 4, 120, 118, and 122. Yes, I think we had those before. Okay, so let's have the agent join us now by stating the name, please.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
Yes, I do hear you.
Good afternoon, members. My name is Matthew Lacatos Hayward, address 333 Bay Street, Suite 3400, and I'm counsel for the owner of 124 Bedford Road, Gluckstein Holdings.
Very good. I'm going to check now with the moderator. Moderator, do we have a speaker registered to speak?
Correct. We have Rob Bosomworth in interest.
Standing
Yep.
by. Wishes to speak.
I believe so, yes.
Very good. Okay, in that case, Mr. Lacatos Hayward, you have 5 minutes to make your presentation to panel.
And thank you, and Mr. Chair, if I can ask that you bring up the presentation materials from October 26th to start, please. So, good afternoon, members. Our client is seeking the committee's approval of 2 minor variances to permit a rear 2-story addition and additional landscaping at the back. And as shown on our client's architect's statistics, 1 variance is required to increase the depth of the dwelling by approximately 1.6 meters, and another variance is required for increases to rear yard landscaping by approximately 11.4%. Now, in listening today, I ask the committee keep in mind the following items. First, the existing home at the property already has a depth exceeding the performance standard in Bylaw 569/2013 and rear yard soft landscaping that is significantly less than performance standards. Second, no variances for height, density, lot coverage, or setbacks are being proposed today. Third, not only are the requested variances in line with other similar proposals in the community, but the proposal will result in improvements to landscaping conditions at the property. So can I just have you go to the next page, please? So before you is a site plan, and as you can see, there is already an existing 2.5-story dwelling fronting onto Bedford Road. The existing building footprint is outlined in green. There is a driveway on the south side of the lot with an existing brick garage, and as I will show you in a second. The red hatched line, which I apologize may not be as clear on the screen here, represents the as-of-right footprint permitted in the R zone under 569/2013. As can be seen, the building width is permitted as of right, but the existing building depth is already beyond the as-of-right bundle. The proposal is to expand the ground and second floor at the rear to accommodate additional living space. The expansion is a modest increase in the existing depth from 23.64 meters to 25.23 meters. It is not for a 6-meter depth addition. As for the landscaping, if I could just have you go to the next page, please. The existing backyard predominantly consists of hard landscaping at the moment to accommodate parking spaces for the property. The only existing soft landscaping is a small planter. Can I just get you to go to the next photo, please? So you can see right now the garage and some of the hard landscaping here. And that hard landscaping is required to make the necessary turns on site. And then can I get you to go to the next photo again as well, please? This photo here, I know it's taken in the winter, but you can see that the planter is just a small enclosed grass area. Can I get you to go back up 2 photos, please? Yep, this one right here. So our client's proposal is to install additional soft landscaping along the north and also at the front. This would increase the soft landscape area from 15.27% to a 26.65% coverage, but a variance is needed as a result of the as-of-right requirement for 50%. And then can I get you to go to the presentation material filed on November 2nd, please? Which is the length map. In the meantime, the length map, while it's being brought up, you'll see in a second that the proposal is rear yard additions are quite common in the neighborhood, and as can be seen here from the blue line, most properties in this area exceed the as-of-right requirement. And so it would result in a depth that is not out of keeping with the character of the neighborhood. Variances for depth and rear yard landscaping are quite common, and the building footprint would generally be in line with what has already been approved, not only here but at 122 Bedford, and would be significantly less than other rear yard additions in the immediate context, such as at 98 Bedford and 142 Bedford.
I must ask you now,
Furthermore,
excuse me, I must ask you now to make your final comments, please.
certainly. Given support from some of the neighborhoods, no concerns from planning staff or urban forestry, our client submits that the proposal meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act and that the committee should approve these variances. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right then, let's go first. We'll hear from the speaker who is registered and standing by, and ask that speaker to join us, please, by stating your name.
Good afternoon, panel.
Good afternoon.
Good, you can hear me.
We hear you.
My name is Rob Rosenworth. I live at 118 Bedford Road, Unit 4, which is the top unit on that building. Unit 118 and 120 are essentially one building, and so the applicant in question is has one house between our building and that building. I have a fair amount of experience with Committee of Adjustments, as I serve on the Committee of Adjustment outside of the city and have probably done 300 adjudications. I don't think, I appreciate the applicant's position on addressing the setback. I think the setback and the 2-story effect of the setback is not minor. I think it is not in keeping with the neighborhood, and I think it is dangerous and precedent setting. I would ask if you could pull up my letter that I sent in to staff. It has some pictures I would like that I think are very important for the panel to see. The second point is on I think as you call them, softscape in the backyard. It is absolutely true that the applicant is showing an improvement, but in my view, and certainly my view is in my experience on the Committee of Adjustment, somebody asking for a 25% coverage when the bylaw is 50%, they are asking for a 50% variance, which I do not think is minor. So thank you. That first picture will work very well. This is a view from the top floor looking south. So the applicant pointed out that it is quite common for buildings to extend into the backyard far more than is allowed by the bylaw, and I would absolutely agree. But if you look at this picture looking south, as far as you can see, none of them have second stories. So the next picture, I think, shows a northern view from the top floor of ours. And here again, you can see that if you could zoom in a little bit, but again, with the exception of the applicant's roof, there are no second stories except for, as the applicant pointed out, at the very northeast corner of Davenport and Bedford. I guess it's Davenport and Bedford. If you go to the south, you have to go probably 200 meters south before you hit something that goes over 25 meters. And by the way, the applicant's setback is more than 25 meters. There are only 2 other buildings on that drawing that he showed that exceed 25 meters, and both of them are on the ones that he mentioned. On the Admiral side, none of them hit 25 meters. So if you just scroll down a little bit to the next picture, at which I have shown the outline, and listen, it's in red, it's very hard to see. I may have it higher than the actual profile, but this is where the second story will block the view from myself and the immediate neighbor on at 122. And if you go down one, that's the outline. If you go down one more, you'll show just my crude attempt at what it is blocking. So I would like to I didn't preface it, but I would like to say that myself and my neighbors are very happy this development is going to go ahead, because the building has been in a sad state of neglect in the 15 years that I've lived. So we're very happy with that. I don't think you can complain without offering a solution. And so what I would like to see is that the applicant very much be allowed to add an addition on the back, but that it only be 1 story, and it goes back no further than the addition at 122. And that would bring it in line with the immediate neighbor, and it would bring it in line with all of the backyards, the adjoining backyards on both Bedford and Admiral, where there are, with one exception, I think, there are no second stories going back as far as 25 meters.
I must ask you to make your final comment now, please. If you could make your final comment now, please.
Soft landing, I made my comment. He doesn't need, the applicant does not need so much space to turn around. I think it's critical they have to be able to turn their car around. And finally, the applicant is known developer, and I do not, whether he knows intend to live there or not, but a developer does not, who is not going to live there, does not have the longer-term interest of the neighborhood at heart. So I ask that the panel consider these recommendations. We would be.
Your time is up.
Myself and my neighbors. There are three letters objecting.
Your time is up now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So, moderator, I'm correct. There are no further speakers standing by? Okay. All right, then, just as we go back to the applicant, who will have an opportunity to respond and rebut, I'd like to also draw some attention to, there was quite a lot of written correspondence. So, for example, the Annex Residents Association expressed concern at the depth of the property, saying that 25 meters where 17 is allowed should not be approved. And then as far as this concern about the rear addition, other letters I think also echoed that. For example, one from 118 Bedford, that the addition in the rear yard is different from other rear yard additions that have taken place because it's 2-story. And so as a 2-story addition, it creates it creates loss of view and privacy and so on. So those are the issues. And then what Mr. Boslenworth has just said, well, basically that was the same as he. None of the rear yard additions are 2-story, and that the subject property should extend no farther than that at 122 and should only be a 1-story. So let's go back to the agent for thoughts on these matters, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few comments. First, with regard to precedent setting. First, I would note again, the number of the height and the permitted and the stories are permitted as of right. With regard to the depth, while I think I appreciate the comments of the Annex Residents Association and other speakers, Again, I would note this is not for a 6-meter increase. I think existing conditions need to be taken into account, and given that this is only for an increase of 1.6 meters, it is relatively modest and would not set a precedent given a number of other approvals in the area, including the ones I've mentioned, as well as other ongoing applications, including one, for example, at 115 Bedford. Regarding the view and impacts, I believe the letters only spoke of interruptions to view and not privacy. I would note there is no deck being proposed, and as this committee, the T-Lab, and every predecessor to the OLT has repeatedly confirmed, planning instruments do not guarantee a right to a view. While this isn't a heritage conservation district, the HCD plan does not protect the view in question, and no impacts have been identified from this loss of view. On soft landscaping, I think the deputant commented on the need for a turn, and his letter certainly speaks to that it is necessary to keep that sort of parking condition on site. Given there are improvements, the requested variances are not representing any impacts to drainage or stormwater management, but are actually resulting in an improvement. Finally, I noted the deputant's comments about my client. I would note that while these comments all lack any planning merit, they are entirely false, as our client is an award-winning interior designer who fully intends to live in his home and continue to contribute to the community. That's my rebuttal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Let's see if the panel has any final questions for you. Panel members? Questions for the applicant? Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Yes, the depth, the diagram that you pointed out with the depths on the streets, are any of those 2 stories? And if so, which ones?
Through you, Mr. Chair, from what I can gather, some of the houses at 106 and 104 certainly appear to be 2 stories. I would note, of course, I have not conducted a site visit of those sites. I can only go based on what I can see from aerial photos.
Okay, sorry, I should have been more clear. Any that are exceeding the existing footprint or depth of your client's home that you've noted on the plan, are any of those 2 stories?
So the portions of the depth coming back, and as you can see in the photos, are for full houses. I think there's a difference between here an addition and a portion of the building. Some of the areas in the back are certainly above 1 story in height. If you want to pull up the photos that the deputant provided, you can see in fact that some of the heights do extend above the 1st story.
Thank you.
Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
Yes, I do have one question with regard to variance number 2. If your client is in the process of upgrading the property, would he she be amenable to the idea of increasing the soft landscaping by adding permeable paving to where you have concrete? I understand you need to turn your car, but if you have permeable paving, that would also suffice, I believe.
I think that would certainly be an option, and I'd be willing to agree to that as a condition of approval if it would further satisfy, and of course work on any existing stormwater and drainage issues through the building permit process as well.
Thank you.
Very good. Any further questions? Hearing none.
One quick question. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry.
Can you? Yeah, you could, okay, thank you. So
Oh,
you
go-
realize that it's a previous,
Go ahead, Mr. Chang, and do speak up a little. Do speak up a touch, please.
okay, sorry. There was a previous approved, decision that allows you to have a secondary suite. I think that was from a previous owner. Am I correct?
Yes, I believe that the previous variance is from a previous owner and is unrelated to this particular application, but was included for completeness purposes.
Okay, fair enough. I just wondered, because what you have one neighbor was wondering if this is going to be a rental property or is it going to be a residence of Mr. Booth's time. So giving your approval today would mean that we're granting approval of expansion and a secondary suite will be free. Okay.
And just to clarify as well, through the chair to you, Mr. Chang, our client fully intends to live in the property as opposed to rent it out.
Thank you very much. At this point, we'll take the application into committee to see if it needs some discussion and to move toward now a decision. Ms. Valentini, go ahead, please.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to start off on this one. I think the materials were really well presented, so thank you for that. And in terms of the variance, in my view, I don't think the variances are outrageous or out of keeping with what is currently going on. Sure, on paper it may look like, wow, this is a huge depth variance, but the existing is well over. The ask is for just over 1.5 meters in terms of the depth variance, and as the applicant's agent pointed out, there are no other variances triggered in terms of FSI setbacks. Often we see a whole bundle of variances, and to me, there's just the one depth variance. And I also noted that these are generous sized lots. The houses aren't cheap to jowl in this neighborhood. There's plenty of setback between all the houses. There's driveway. So I think that the lot can hold this, what I would say is a modest size addition. I don't think there will be any negative impact on the neighbors as a result of this addition, notwithstanding maybe some of the additions are not two-story in this neighborhood. I don't see any adverse impacts from allowing this. As I pointed out, the lots are generously sized and houses are well set back from each other. And I think the proposal for the increase in softscape is much better than what currently exists. So I'm in favor of the application as it stands.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
I concur with Ms. Valentini, certainly. I was just wondering, since they are going to be engaging in construction, and as the agent has indicated, they'd be amenable to increasing the soft landscaping by adding permeable paving. I'm not sure that we could actually indicate how much more, but I would support the application with the hope that the applicant will consider increasing soft landscaping, given the real need for soft landscaping in our city as it grows and intensifies in development. So I'd be quite happy to support Ms. Valentini if she's putting forward a motion.
Well, just while we're there, I was listening to this, and the permeable paver idea made sense to me too. How could we, in actual language, how could we include that in if there was to be a motion to approve? How would you include language about the permeable pavers with respect to where they are? The permeable pavers would be located on the site plan where?
The percentage, we meet with 50%.
That could be one way, I suppose, increasing the percentage, Mr. Chang. I think you're right, that could be one way to do it. It may not be, it may be difficult to identify what that percentage is going to be without architects being involved.
I don't think we need to do, we don't need to refer to the percentage specifically if we can identify the area on the site plan that's going to be permeable pavers. And where would you want to see the permeable pavers installed, Mr. Byatt?
You know, one of the areas that comes to mind, and I'm just going to look at the presentation material, and I believe I don't think this drawing has, it's page number 2 in the presentation material that shows the area where vehicle backs out into the backyard for turning purposes. That's the one. So the area that is shown directly below in this diagram, just below the soft landscaping that has a tree in it. If that could be permeable paving, I think that might work a lot better.
I think it might work. Is that possible to do, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer? Could we refer to this drawing and saying that that driving area, the Y-shaped area, be permeable?
The turnaround area, I think, might be as shown on the site plan.
Yes.
Turnaround area as shown on site plan. There's the language.
Yes.
I just want to add that that's a very good location, because if you look at the survey, that's the lowest point of the lot. So the water tends to drain down to that area. So it won't have ponding and flood to the neighbors. So the turnaround.
Mr. Cheng, we here in this, we couldn't hear what you said. We missed the impact.
I'll speak louder again. I
Please.
said that is a very good location to propose, because that is the lowest point of the site if you look at the survey.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right.
Just to clarify, the site plan in that where the turnaround area, it's denoted as existing concrete paving to remain. The driveway is asphalt going from the side of the house, so I'm not sure if it's demarked where sort of the asphalt kind of ends and where the concrete paving, existing concrete paving, where that demarcation line is. Like how extensive is it the concrete area maybe that, which is shown as a parking area, maybe that's the area just to be removed with permeable pavers? I'm not quite sure.
I think what we're talking about is the Y-shaped turnaround area.
I have a suggestion. Could it be easier to say from the wall of the garage straight up to the house, and then to the south of that, like that, you know, from the garage wall, you know, parallel to?
The portion from the garage wall to the rear line of the house.
Yeah, and then everything to the side of that. I don't know if that's easier to interpret. That's my only suggestion.
Well, we can say that the turnaround area from the rear of the garage to the rear line of the proposed house would be permeable pavers. The rest to remain asphalt. So there's an idea. Is anyone ready with a motion at this stage? Ms. Hayes, give it a try.
I'll try, okay. So, for you, Mr. Chair, for all the reasons that have been noted, my colleagues, I'd like to move a motion to approve the application, subject to the condition that permeable pavers be installed from the, what's the direction? I guess the south exterior wall of the garage up to the wall of the proposed house.
The turnaround area.
To the lot line.
I think you want to describe that as the turnaround area between the...
Well, that's fine, but I don't know if it's the turnaround area on the... I'll take guidance from staff as the best wording. that can be interpreted by building.
Perhaps it's simply an extension eastward from the north wall of the garage to the rear of the dwelling, the rear main wall of the dwelling.
That sounds good.
Let's go with that wording. All right, is there a second to that motion as amended? It is seconded by Mr. Byatt, which brings us to a vote. All those in favor of that motion, show of hands, please. That motion is carried unanimously and the application is so approved. Thank you. Okay. At this stage, the panel has been on the go for just about 5 hours. So I think it is time to recess for to take a recess for lunch here. For a bite to
Are we
eat.
not going to finish the morning agenda, Mr. Chair?
Well, I
or
think because I think
are you suggesting we-
I think it has the potential to go on for another hour. It's conceivable to. Well, if panel is agreeable, we can push through to the end of the morning session.
If we could just have 5 minutes, I'm agreeable to that.
Okay then. In that case, we will recess now, and I'll ask panel to return promptly. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. See you back in 5. We resume. And we resume on item number 16, 116 South Drive. Here the panel has before it applicant's materials, urban forestry staff report, and correspondence in support from 118 South Drive next door, 33 Dunbar Road, and 114 South. Very good. So we'll ask the applicant now to join us, please, by stating your name.
Hi, yes, I'm Mike De Oliveira. I'm here representing 116 South Drive, and I'm with Replacement Design, located at 911 Davenport Road. And I think there's a little bit of a mix-up with the letters of support. I think 118 ended up getting submitted twice, but we also have a letter from 120 as well. I just want to make you aware of that.
Would you mind repeating that, please, that second part?
Yeah, I believe the letter for 118 got uploaded twice by mistake. So I just want to point out we also have a letter from 120 South Drive as well.
Okay, thank you. All right. So that's two, okay, two there that are close. Okay, very good, thank you. Okay then, on this application panel, would we like to hear a presentation, or do you have questions for the agent? No, hearing none. I'll look to panel for a motion, please. Ms. Valentini, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've read the materials and looked at the plans, and I am in support of this application. I think that this is a large lot. It can hold this addition. And I did note that neighbors on either side are in support of the application, both 114 and 118. So I, in my view, don't see any negative impact as a result of the addition. And I don't know if my colleagues would like to add anything else further, but if not, I'm happy to bring forward a motion for approval of the application, and I would make it subject to urban forestry number 2.
Is there a second? There is. Ms. Hayes seconds the motion. So motioned before us, moved and seconded to approve, subject to forestry. Those in favor, show of hands, please. And that's a unanimous vote to carry the motion. The application is approved. We move on to number 17, 5 Taylor Drive. And on 5 Taylor, before us we have the applicant's materials and a staff report from Urban Forestry. And on this application, we have, do we have one party standing by to speak registered?
I believe I'm trying to make contact with Carlo Simmons. I can try to give them a call right now again.
So far they're not standing by? Give a quick call and we'll see if we can connect.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe the speaker hung up.
Okay. Okay then, so on this application, we have no registered speakers standing by. I'll ask panel if they would like a presentation or if they would prefer to direct questions to the applicant. Anyone with questions? Let's first of all get the
Or have
applicant.
we introduced the applicant yet, or?
We
am
have
I-
not. We have not done so
Okay,
yet.
I
So
thought maybe it was my lack of sitting here for 5 hours. I thought maybe I missed that, but okay, thank you.
I failed to introduce the applicant. That was my lack of sitting here for 5 hours. Okay. So let's bring the applicant into the conversation. Please join us by stating your name.
Hi, my name is Hector Strautsis.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay. That we now have the agent with us if we have any questions, okay? But we still don't have any questions for him. Okay. Is anyone on the panel ready to go forward with the motion? Ms. Hayes.
Thank you. Having reviewed all the material on file and looking at the configuration of the lot and even the existing structure on the lot, I think that the length and depth variances are not inappropriate. I think that the little notch on the one side to protect the only neighbor is helpful. I think with the driveway access, given that the siting of the house and where the new front door is going to be, I think it is indeed appropriate, and I don't have a concern with respect to the width. And if my colleagues have no further comment, I would move a motion to approve the application subject to forestry condition number 2 and 3.
Thank you. It is seconded by Ms. Valentini. So moved and seconded to approve. All those subject to forestry 2 and 3. Those in favor, show of hands, please. Motion carried. Application is approved. We go on to number 245, Shaw Street, item number 18. And on this application, we have one late arriving piece of correspondence from 238 Crawford, received yesterday. Plus, we have the applicant's materials. We have a revised site plan, received 22 and 26 October. We have revised zoning notices, 2 of them. We have email from the zoning examiner, 19 October. There is, pardon me, there is correspondence from community planning and staff reports from transportation and urban forestry. There is opposition correspondence. 236 Crawford. Another from 236 Crawford and 238 Crawford. So, we shall now ask the applicant to join us, please.
Afternoon.
By stating your name.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. It's Barry Goldman speaking. I'm the architect and agent for this proposal.
Thank you.
The proposal is to construct a 2-story rear addition and expand the existing 3rd floor, really virtually by cranking the existing sloped roof at the rear up to get a bit more headroom on the existing 3rd floor. I would suggest the variances are minor because of the opposition.
Mr. Goldman, just hang on for a moment, please. I'm going to ask the panel in a moment if they'd like a presentation. They may have direct questions for you, but let me just check with the moderator first. Moderator, do we have anyone registered here?
I don't think so. No, Mr. Chair, we don't.
No, we don't. Okay, so there are no registered speakers standing by, so I'll put it to panel. Panel, would you like a presentation, or do you have questions to direct at the agent? Question from Ms. Hayes. Go ahead.
Just have a question with respect to the planning comments and the October 26th plans. Is there an amendment to the variances being requested as relates to that?
Yes, so variance number 3, the soft landscaping, we will comply. We do not need variance number 3.
So variance number 3 is deleted.
Correct. Likewise, variance number 8, transportation took a little bit of time to get back to us. As soon as we got the drawing from transportation, we amended it, so we no longer require variance number 8. We did set the carport back 2.5 meters from the center.
Thank you. I just wanted, that's what I understood. I just wanted that on the record. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other changes to the actual minor variances before us?
No, just to go over them. With variance number
No.
3 has been eliminated.
Variance 3 and 8, that's all I've got to know. I just want to make sure that we're dealing, so 3 and 8 are both eliminated.
And variance 7, as I see before me, should read .09. That was just a typo.
It does read so now. So the 6 variances that remain, I think we have them correctly then. Very good. Panel members, any further questions for the applicant?
Yes, I just wanted to confirm, I know some of the neighbors had raised concerns in their letters about the tightness of the lane, I suppose, the restriction. So by moving your carport back, that I'm assuming it's going to address the neighbors' concerns in terms of laneway access? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We do think it will. We've moved it a fair ways back from the rear property line, so it should not impact anybody trying to go elsewhere in that lane.
And will it now bring it in line with current or other existing garages in the laneway? Is that more or less?
I'm gonna say more or less. Yeah. It's kind of chock-a-block. Most of them are older
Right.
structures, and they're going in and out.
But I suppose the adjacent neighbors in any event.
Yeah, it'll be in line with those, and it's in keeping with what transportation requested.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I have a question that relates to minor variance number 3 has been deleted, so my question is also unimportant. I see in terms of the written correspondence in opposition, there is one letter which refers to construction issues. Those, of course, are not the purview of the Committee of Adjustment. They could be dealt with by neighbors during construction by contacting the construction department. And there's also a letter that talks about work already having been conducted. That again is not one of the variances that the panel's dealing with. Okay. Any further questions for the applicant panel? Or are we ready to move on to look at a motion? Mrs. Valentini, go ahead.
I'm happy to bring a motion forward. I think with the change for this amended application, I think the big things, or at least some concerns related to the softscape and access to the laneway in terms of what the neighbors have been complaining about, or at least raising as concerns. I think that the amended application with those changes makes it more palatable, and I feel that the proposed additions are in keeping with what is sort of in the vicinity. So I'd like to bring a motion forward for approval of the application as amended, and it'd be subject to urban forestry condition number 2.
Thank you. Mr. Byatt seconds. Moved and seconded to approve, subject to forestry. The application as amended, minus those 2 variances, 3 and 8. Those in favor, show of hands, please. And that motion carries unanimously. The application is so approved. We move on to number 19 on the agenda, 430 O'Connor Drive. On 430 O'Connor, before us are the materials of the applicant, an arborist report from October 27, various Committee of Adjustment decisions from previous years. There is a map of verbal and written support received 27 October. There's email correspondence from TRCA, Urban Forestry, and a staff report from Urban Forestry. There's correspondence both in support of and opposed to the application. There are 4 form letters in support. These are signed by 434, 436, 437, 438 O'Connor. And in opposition, there's correspondence from 432 O'Connor. Okay. So let's bring the applicant into the conversation. Please join us, applicant, by stating your name.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Leo Mastandrea. I am the agent for the owners at 430 O'Connor.
Very good. Good afternoon. You have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Go ahead, please.
Well, I'd like to start off by saying that our lot is 350 foot deep, and it's a unique situation because the adjacent house to the west is set back quite a distance. If you pull up the survey, you can see it's set back about 200 feet. That's what's bringing a lot of these variances. For example, number 2, 3, and 9 are all related because of the setback. So if you look at the average of the adjacent properties, our setback would be a lot further. So we try to keep it in line with the adjacent house to the east. And a lot of these variances are technical because of the average of the front yard setback. The variance number 5, we do have a positive slope, so it's more of a technical issue. And variance number 6 and 11, although we are seeking for 9.48, if you can pull up my front elevation, the 9.48 is only at the peak at the front of the house. The rest is at 8.83, which is consistent with the approved decisions of the area. Number 7 and 8 is also consistent with what's been approved. And again, because of the length of our lot, I think it's accordingly appropriate to have that additional length. We comply with coverage, we comply with FSI, and TRCA has no concerns. Forestry has no concerns. Ravine and natural feature protection has no concerns. Community planning has no concerns.
Thank you very
If you
much.
have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you. Stand by. We're going to go now to the speaker registered to speak in opposition, support, or interest.
Hi, Mr. Simone, you are unmuted. You are able to speak. Michael Simone? Michael, we aren't able to hear you. If you're able to unmute your phone or increase your microphone volume so we can hear you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I can try giving him another call.
You think we should give him another call? Take a moment, see if you can raise him. We'll just stand by for a moment, panel, while we try one more time to contact the registered speaker. Well, this is Michael Simone, and Michael Simone did submit a late submission, received on the 28th of October. on behalf of Vincent Simone. So,
Hello.
hello.
Hold on, I have to unmute him again. Hold on. Hi, Michael, you are unmuted.
Yes.
Go ahead.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
We do hear
Hello?
you.
Yeah.
Please state your name.
Okay. My name is Mike Simone. I'm speaking on behalf of my brother Vince Simone, residing at 432 O'Connor for 50 years. Our concerns are as follows. Firstly, number 10, the reduction of the setback from 1.5 meters to 1.22 meters. Considering the magnitude of the construction and the structure having no angle or slant, being a flat roof, we would oppose the setback. We would ask that they could just stay and keep at the 1.5 meters under the existing bylaw distance from our property, considering the size and the wall being straight up, which would kind of impact our views, and we would have a very huge wall beside us. Moving on to number 11, we're very concerned and oppose the increase in height of the roof to approximately a meter. We find this excessive and will impact afternoon and evening sunlight and sight lines. Again, given the roof has no slant. Moving on to number 8. Considering the house is approximately, to the best of my calculations, 18 feet past our dwelling of 432, we find this excessive again, impacting sunlight, views to the west, and also impacting backyard privacy. Moving on to number 9, I would like clarification.
15 seconds remaining.
I would like clarification on where the front yard, where the front wall of the house sits in in relation to our front wall, if it is even or if it stands out in front of us. I'm not really clear on that.
Very good. Anything else, Michael?
Also, I'm just looking at the design of the house. It's really not in sort of, was looking at all the other A-frame homes. There's a Tudor to the west. We have a classic stone front A-frame. 434, 436, 438 are all A-frame homes. And all the line, on all the backs of the houses pretty much line up. So I was hoping that they could just maybe possibly stay within the bylaw, and they would still have ample room to build behind us.
Okay, Michael, let me ask you a question. How with respect to lot width, you're concerned about number 10, the side yard setback. How wide is your lot, and how wide do you think? How wide is? Oh, okay. I'm just looking at the plan. So these are 50-foot lots, right? These are 15-meter.
I believe they are. Yes,
Yeah,
I believe so.
They're 50-foot lots, and so the question arises: why do you need a side yard setback? Okay. Any questions, panel?
Why am I questioning the?
Oh no. I was raised. No, I was just being hypothetical. I'm just going to check, Michael, now with my colleagues. Any other questions for the neighbor?
No, that pretty much sums it up.
Okay.
I would say.
Okay. Panel, do you have any questions for the speaker? No. Okay. Thank you very much for your input. I'll go back now to the agent And agent, the person speaking on behalf of the next door neighbor, quite specific concerns relating to variance number 10, the side yard setback. Basically doesn't objects to that. The question arises, why do you need a side yard setback of 1.21 where 1.5 is required on a 50-foot lot, a lot that's 50 feet wide? Number 11, with respect to the height, and number 8, which with respect to depth. All of these dimensions are of concern to the next door neighbor. Could you address those, please? Oh, and
Yes,
also the front yard, front yard. Just while I bring it up, the question was put by the neighbor whether your front wall lines up with the existing front wall of the neighbor's house.
Yes, our front wall does line up with the front wall of the neighbor's house. And so based on the concerns of the neighbor, we're willing to change variance number 10 to remove the second part to the east so we can comply with the east side. So we can just remove that second part where the detached dwelling would be located 1.21 from the east side. We can remove that completely because I will make it comply. And by doing that, it will also remove variance number 1. And also we can comply with variance number 4. So I'd like to remove variance number 1, variance number 4, and revise variance number 10.
Okay, this is important. Let's go very slowly for a moment or two while we capture all these changes. I want to repeat them back to you so that we know and staff has a chance to capture that we're getting it down right. So you are eliminating variance number 1, eliminating variance number 4, and on variance number 10, you're going to delete the east. Is it the east side or the west side you're deleting the variance request?
The east side. The
Okay.
east side to the neighbor with the concerns.
Okay. So, staff, have we captured that? So we'll take off the 1.21 on the east side. And your neighbor would be appreciative of that, I'm certain. Okay. Very good. Anything else you wish to say in terms of rebuttal? Go ahead.
Again, it is a unique situation because of the average of the adjacent properties. So in reality, we could push our house further back, but I just think it's appropriate because most of the houses are consistent with what's with the front yard setback, which we're proposing. And I believe by making these changes would help the neighbors' concerns. And in addition, the height is actually only at 8.83, so we're asking for an additional 1 foot, and it's only the peak that is 9.48.
Thank you. Panel members, questions for the applicant? There is a question, Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Yes, what's the height of the side walls to the, what's the height to the side without the peak?
8.83.
So the variance only relates to the peak over the front door?
The 9.48 is just for the peak.
Thank you.
Very good. Any further questions for the applicant? Hearing none, we can take this application into committee and move to a motion if we're ready for that, or discussion if you prefer. Anyone? Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think these lots are very, very unusual, as I think we've all recognized. The presentation, I think, is good. There's no concern from DRCA. There's a forestry condition number 3 attached to it, but beyond that, I do not see any reason not to support this application as amended. And I would like to commend the agent for making those concessions to meet the needs of the concerns of the neighbor. So I don't have any concern with being able to approve this application as presented and as amended.
So you're making a motion to that effect?
If there's no objections from my colleagues, Ms. Hayes has something to add.
So here, I just wondered if you would, because of the height issue that we clarified, would you be prepared to tie it to plans so that there's
Absolutely.
no question about that?
Absolutely, yes, Ms. Hayes, thank you.
Very good.
I'll second then.
Okay. Forestry applies? Yes. And apparently forestry does apply.
Number 3.
Forestry
Number
3. Okay.
So just to clarify, you're just tying it to the plans for the height, right? Because since the variances have been amended,
Yes,
and no
yes,
longer the
just-
setback applies?
Yeah, just with
okay.
respect to the height.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So it is
Sorry, just to clarify through you, Mr. Chair, it's tying it to the elevation plans? Okay.
Wanted, Joanne, the elevation plans?
Yes, whichever best illustrates the height.
good. Good. Okay. Okay, in that case, we are dealing with an amended application, having deleted variances number 1 and 4, and deleted the east side reference on variance number 10, and tying it to elevations to with respect to the height. And that is moved and seconded. So all those in favor, show of hands, please. And that motion is carried unanimously. The application is so approved. And we move to the final item on the 9:30 agenda, which is item number 20. Number 20, Roblin Ave. We've got the applicant's materials before us. We have a staff report from forestry. And we have a total, we have we have 3 form letters in support, signed by owners and occupants of 5, 10, and 12 Roblin, which were received on 29 October. Previously received, there were 5 form letters in support, signed by occupants of 7 and 16. Also 5, 10, and 12. Okay, very good. So let's bring the applicant into our meeting. We'll ask the applicant to join us, please, by stating your name.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Shadi Orani from 685 Shepherd Avenue East on behalf of the owner of 8 Roblin Avenue.
Very good. I'm just going to check with moderator now. We do have a speaker in opposition here. So, Ms. Orani, you have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Go ahead.
So the application is for the construction of a new 2-story single-family detached dwelling with an integrated garage. The first 2 variances are the lot coverage and FSI, where the bylaw allows for 35% and we are proposing a 37% coverage. And for FSI, we are proposing 0.71. We did our study and reviewed the approved decisions in the neighborhood just to make sure that both the design and the requested variances are in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. The footprint of the proposed house respects all required setbacks, including the side yard setbacks, the front yard setback, rear yard setback, length and depth. And we are also respecting the required building height as well. These proposed coverage and FSIs have been approved before in the neighborhood, and they both reflect the feel of the neighborhood. The third variance is with regards to the height of the main walls. In reality, only the walls in the front and back are at the height of 8.15 meters, and we are respecting the required height of main walls on the side, which is in fact what the bylaw allows. I have shown on the side elevation, if you see the drawings, that the projections are only on the side, and are only on the front and the back, and what's projected on the side is in fact the thickness of the wall. We have also door knocked and met with most of the residents, any of them that we could find. I've provided letters of support, as you mentioned, and I would appreciate it if the committee members would approve our proposal. Thank you, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the speaker who's standing by.
Hello?
Yes, please give us your name, please.
Okay. My name is Murray Oxby. My address is 67 Binswood Avenue, which backs onto this lot. Thank you for your time today. I have no objection to the proposal for the house. My concern is about the trees and retaining walls at the rear of the property. I understand from the plans that the retaining wall is not changing, but it's not clear to me what's happening to the tree cover atop the retaining walls, which provide a nice privacy screen. These are not large trees. I understand they're not covered by the bylaw. Nevertheless, I believe it would be beneficial for the owner and the neighborhood to preserve these trees, given the city's goals of preserving and expanding tree cover in the city, and especially since a large tree next door was taken down recently by the person developing the home on that lot. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay then, returning to you, applicant, just one question there, and that is, will you be maintaining his lot backs onto your subject lot? Will you be maintaining the trees? He'd like to see the trees maintained that provide cover between the two properties. Go ahead.
I do appreciate the neighbor's concern and question. If you refer to the site plan, we specifically noted the retaining walls to remain, so we would be able to retain the existing soft landscaping, and we have not, if you refer to the urban forestry report, we have not submitted for removal of any of the trees. And he's correct about right now on our site plan, because the application is from a couple of months ago, we are showing the neighbor's tree, and we have even shown a tree protection fence for that tree, because we thought that at the time of construction the tree would be there. Unfortunately, it seems like the tree does not exist anymore, but you can see the tree protection fence. So we have not noted for any of the trees to be removed, nor any of the rear yard landscaping. So as a matter of fact, we are retaining all the existing retaining walls, steps, and the soft landscaping in the back.
Thank you.
Because at the same time, the trees do provide privacy for us and for them at the same time.
Thank you very much. Panel members, do you have questions to address to the agent? Go ahead, if you do. Hearing none, then I'll look to panel members to move to a motion, please. Ms. Hayes, go right ahead.
Thank you. I think what's being proposed is indeed reasonable. It's not out of character with what is there. The roof treatment, I think, lessens the impact of the sidewall height and the resulting visual massing of the structure. I think the lot coverage increase is minor. The FSI is not out of keeping with what exists in the neighborhood. And for that reasons, if my colleagues have no further comments, I'd like to move a motion to approve the application subject to forestry condition 2 and 3.
Thank you very much. It is seconded by Mr. Byatt. So moved and seconded. Approval, subject to forestry. Those in favor, show of hands, please. That motion is carried unanimously, and the application is approved. We thereby wrap up our 9:30 agenda. And so, we will be recessing now. I'm just going to check with staff and panel members. It's now 3:12. How would staff be okay to resume at 4 p.m.? Panel members? 4 p.m., okay. So we will recess now and begin on item number 21, the 1:30 agenda at 4 p.m. Thank you, and see you then.
For anybody watching on YouTube, we're just going to switch the stream. So a new PM Part 2 session would begin shortly.